Hello and welcome to a video for Abel, Breaker, Shaz from the G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra movie toy line. Here's a closer look at the packaging that Abel, Breaker, Shaz comes in. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too much, but so that I don't continue to butcher it maybe even more, I did want to go ahead and continue to just call him Breaker, since we will be making connections to the Real American Hero character also that's named Breaker. Now, we do have a card back, but this time instead of going straight across and straight down, they went for more of an angular and around the G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra logo that has also been updated. One thing I did like is that they do have the picture, as they seem to be doing ever since the 1980s. They always seem to have the picture of the character. Now, I was in a store recently. I was good and I didn't buy any Star Wars figures, but I was noticing that they put Darth Maul, if I'm not mistaken, on every single card right here. And it would be nice if somehow they could have put maybe the name of the character up here, or maybe a picture of this character up here. So then when you are going through the pegs, it's a little bit easier to go through. Because if you ever do this as a collector, maybe I'm more self-conscious than other people, but I always seem to knock things over, and I'm not meaning to, but it would make it a lot easier if I could see what character I'm going after. Now, I did also want to take a chance here to say that I did a Sergeant Stone video that will come out after this, but I did make a mistake and did not notice that he actually does come with this cord just like Breaker. The gun is exactly the same, maybe the missile is a different color, but unlike Breaker here, we don't get this computer again, so it's just that cord. So maybe he's just supposed to push that button and that's what activates the missile within the universe. Then the other thing I wanted to say is that with the packaging, I felt like this was collector friendly. Maybe they could make that a little bit more collector friendly, but maybe what are your guys' ideas on how they could have made G.I. Joe, or continue to make G.I. Joe figures more collector friendly in the packaging? But I did want to show you this because I did learn this, that as long as you remember to take the figure, should you want to do this for packaging, and you still have the insert that this figure's in, you can line everything up just like that and then put it like this. And I'm thinking it will be pretty safe, but it kind of looks like here, unless my HD camera is picking it up, it looks like this is a mistake and then I ended up with all these figures. Now, you could also just end up gluing it, but sometimes when you glue it, you'll still see all the seams. But I cut this pretty well, and what you're going to do is that on the back of the package there's actually tape, and if you cut the tape and you open these flaps, which I'll try and do on camera, if not then we'll have to do an edit, but you open up both of these flaps without hopefully ripping it, and hopefully getting it on camera too, and then the glue is still pretty tight on this, but you would pull the tape and then use a knife or something like a knife, maybe an X-Acto knife, but be very careful. And then you just cut along here and the bottom and just leave the top. So then that still gives you a somewhat sealed package. So that's at least what I did with all of my Rise of Cobra figures. So maybe it's just me, but with the pictures of the movie line just being released, or at least I'm hoping, I'm part of the group right now that I hope is hoping that their pre-production work, you know, hopefully they'll look as good, but hopefully there'll be some changes. Or of course we're supposed to get some exclusives or even some more figures on down the line after the initial wave of figures come out for the movie. But what do you think? Do you think that they should do the packaging again like this, where we can kind of seal it back up? Or does it matter? Maybe you don't save your packaging. That's one thing for me being a collector that one day, if I don't get more room, I'm going to have to get used to, is throwing the packaging away. Lots of times it's really hard for me to do that because I feel like I should keep the packaging. And then when you end up having one that's opened and then you have one sealed, maybe then you don't need the packaging, but still. I have all the opened ones as well, even though the figure are loose from the packaging. So I think that's pretty much everything that is new and hopefully different about talking about the packaging this time. Now, we do want to pay attention to the G.I. Joe logo though, because we do have some figures that end up with the logo, or maybe it's all the figures, so that will be interesting to see if there's any figures through the line that don't have the updated G.I. Joe logo. And that's the other thing, I wonder if they're going to keep that logo for the next movie as well, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that. In this section we have the different figures that came out for the line. Here it does say collect the other G.I. Joe action figures, and with these figures, all these figures made it in the movie. The only figure that, as far as I can tell, didn't make in the movie is Shipwreck right here. So it'll be interesting with the new movie. Again, they're talking about later on having figures come out in the line, so it'll be interesting if we end up with other characters that won't be inside the movie, but will be, as some people call it, or maybe even everybody calls it, off-screen characters. But with this part, I really like the fact that it looks like a painting. Really, really nice there. And very different than what they've done in the past. On the back of the packaging we have an advertisement for at the time that they were advertising the EA game, which again, with the new movie coming out, hopefully we end up with a game that's a little bit better than the game that we did get. I did play it, I do own it, but I think it could have been better, even though most of the time, unless you can think of a game that came out for a movie that was actually good, that would be a comment that would be cool, because for the most part, usually the games and the figures and the movie line don't usually tie in together, and the reason why is because the time that the movie's being made, the game has to be made at the same time, because nowadays, and maybe even before, games take just as long as movies do to take. Now, we do have also visit GIJoe.com, so it will be interesting to see how they update that for the new movie. For the description of what G.I. Joe is in the Rise of Cobra movie, we have G.I. Joe is a highly trained, classified special operations unit composed of men and women from around the globe. Officially, these warriors don't even exist. Few know the truth. The G.I. Joe fights a secret war as the first and last line of defense against forces that seek to plunge our world into chaos. Wherever there is trouble, G.I. Joe is there. Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. Now, I do like the fact that there's a joke there, and even in the movie, we end up with quite a few jokes. So it'll be interesting. We've already seen at least one in the new trailer for releasing G.I. Joe on the Super Bowl day. But it will be interesting to see if we end up with some jokes within the movie, because I actually didn't mind the jokes. I really liked it. I mean, the reason that I love G.I. Joe and being able to share is because in my family, I'm the only G.I. Joe collector. In fact, as far as I know, I'm only the toy collector within the family. So the fact that I can share and say, you know, that part right there, that was a joke, and the reason why it's a joke is this, I find that fun. Some people didn't like the jokes, but I thought they were okay. So definitely keep an eye out for those jokes within the movie. For this section, we have the ID or clearance badge. Get that idea because there seems to be a barcode going across the top there. Then there's a hole that's been drawn there that looks like a lanyard where to go through. We have the ID photograph here. It is a closer look at the photograph that's used on the front. Although they use it both in this photograph and the one on the front, he does not come with the headset, communications headset that maybe you would assume he comes with. Now it says Abel Breaker Saz is a communications specialist for the G.I. Joe team and applies his innovative thinking to technological problems. In other words, he's a supremely gifted hacker who can manipulate the digital and electronic worlds to achieve the desired results. And he does have quite a few gadgets and also does some computer work in the movie. Now it does say Breaker, Abel Breaker Saz, and hopefully I'm still saying that correctly, right? Serial number 757-79-AR35. Now it'll be interesting if he shares the same serial number as the original Breaker. Now it says grade Corporal E4, which I think is the same, but I'm not sure, so we'll have to check that. Then it says preferred weapon DAIR-1 Directed Artificial Intelligence Robotic Weapon. Now, I don't think he uses anything like that in the movie, and unfortunately he doesn't come with anything like that as a figure. Then we have a thumbprint right there for his ID. Now, it does say for official identification only, so I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I'm not sure why they had to put that there. I guess that's kind of just a warning that if you are caught, you're in trouble.